technology policy. And this has become a cabinet-level position in the Biden administration. So it's not just some underling here at the White House or in the administration, someone of importance in terms of relationship with the president and influence in policy and decision-making. Dr. Lander, it has come to light, the Washington Post and Politico reporting on this is separate. This has happened while he was here. And the idea that, this is a zero tolerance policy, yet
apparently not.
Maybe it's a 1 or 2 strikes you're out. But that was the tough position that the press secretary was in earlier today.
Interesting. We're talking with Greg Clugston, SRN News White House correspondent. Greg, let's go back and talk about a story that's making the rounds today about the Trump administration once again. And
these reports from the Washington Post and Politico initially. And there has been confirmation from the National Archives and the Records Administration, which handles all documents with any administration. And there is a law on the books, by the way, called the Presidential Records Act, and that requires every president, every administration to keep and to preserve, and at the end of their terms in office, have presidents turn over to or retrieved by the archives at the Mar-a-Lago residence of where Donald Trump lives in Florida. And so what's interesting is that there is what was included in some of these boxes. Some correspondence with foreign leaders, for example, and also a succession letter that is a tradition in the White House when an outgoing president leaves a personal letter for the incoming president, usually in the desk drawer in the Oval Office. And apparently the Bill Clinton not Bill Clinton, but Barack Obama letter that was addressed to Donald Trump was among those items.
Interesting.
Wow. And so perhaps
still in pieces. So
there's this poor little archivist who's like,
wow.
She wasn't bothered by the political division, Greg. So.
Right, yeah.
No, she carried on for decades.
Very good.
Nice to see you.
Greg, thanks an awful lot. You're bringing us up to date. A lot going on in Washington, D.C. You bring a measure of clarity to this, so we always appreciate your time here.
Thank you.
Greg Clugston, SRN News White House correspondent. The aforementioned Flamingo. We'll talk about that next, of course. It's a Ride Home with John and Kathy.
When it's time to replace your roof, siding, gutters, and downspouts, entry doors, and, of course, windows, you can count on Windows R Us, the area's premier exterior replacement company. This is John Steigerwald. With over 50 years' experience in the home remodeling industry, Windows R Us offers repair and replacement for all your exterior home projects. Why pay double with some other companies? Windows R Us will always give you the best price on the best in-class products, backed by the best warranties in the industry, all with zero sales pressure. And speaking of zero, right now get zero interest financing for 12 months and no processing fee through Dollar Bank. With prices set to increase on all exterior products, lock in your quote today. Schedule a free estimate at WindowsRUsPittsburgh.com. Find them at the Pittsburgh Home Show going on now and the Pittsburgh Remodeling Expo at Heinz Field beginning February 11th.
Windows R Us. You've tried the rest, now try the best.
Where can you find a high-quality, locally hand-built mattress at a factory direct value? Only here at the Original Mattress Factory. Our factory direct business model allows us to provide a better quality mattress at a better price when compared to mainstream mattress brands. That's because we manufacture our mattresses in our local factories and sell them directly to you, eliminating the middleman markup and saving you money. And we can provide fast local delivery as well as pickup 7 days a week at our factory location. Visit an Original Mattress Factory location near you.
Did you know that when you buy a mattress from a retail store, that mattress is being sold for the second time? What do I mean? Well, the manufacturer sells the mattress to the retailer, who in turn sells it to you with costs and markups for both parties. This is Greg Trzynski, and at the Original Mattress Factory, we have our own factory right here at our store. So the mattress you buy is being sold for the first and only time. That's why our prices are hundreds less than the mainstream brands. Visit originalmattress.com to learn more.
Your life, your hopes, and whatever you were searching for at 1:15 a.m. It's really none of our business, and it shouldn't be anyone else's. Protect your privacy online for free with DuckDuckGo. DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified.
As a veteran media sales professional, a six-figure income is within your reach. I'm Andrew Pawlowski, General Sales Manager of Word FM. Here at Salem Media Pittsburgh, we offer highly experienced sales and marketing professionals like you all the support and tools necessary to reach your earning potential through custom on-air campaigns, unique events, and over 50 social media and digital products. To learn more about our open position, please email me at andrew@salempittsburgh.com. Salem Media is an equal opportunity employer.
Listen on your smart speaker at wordfm.com, the Word FM app, iHeart, TuneIn, and on Odyssey. In your car or at home, too, at 101.5 WORD FM, Pittsburgh.
Low clouds expected for tonight. We could see a late night flurry with a low of 18. Tomorrow, cloudy skies for the morning hours, then intervals of clouds and sunshine in the afternoon. We'll reach a high tomorrow of 30. Mostly cloudy skies for tomorrow night with a low of 26. As we head to the middle of the week on Wednesday, we'll see mostly cloudy skies with a high of 43. With your AccuWeather forecast, I'm Drew Shannon.
Hey, it's Monday, so we thought, well, perfect time to bring you a story for the birds. A Monday story for the birds, which includes a story about a flamingo. Aren't the flamingos beautiful?
They are spectacular.
The nation's oldest flamingo, a popular pink lady known as Betty, has passed away in the Washington Zoo at the age of 67. The zoo announced over the weekend that Betty died on January 25th, noting that the median lifespan for a flamingo in captivity is a mere 26 years of age, making Betty pretty remarkable. Her longevity is a testament to the dedication and care of our birdhouse team, the zoo said in a statement, adding that it will conduct a pathology report to better understand Betty's remarkable good health.
All right, great.
So Betty hangs out all those years, and then she finds herself on the table.
I know. Salute Betty. I like how you called her the pink lady. I wonder if they could tell which one was Betty?
Oh, I'm
sure. They seem very similar when you look at a group of flamingos.
No, I'm sure. Plus, they have bands on them, I'm sure, right?
Okay.
Betty lived the first years of her life in the wild. That may be the key here. Zookeepers believe she hatched around 1954.
You know why? Because you don't you feel badly for animals in zoos.
I do.
I feel like they're protected and cared for.
Well, she lived her first years. She was hatched around 54 and then, quote, acquired by the zoo in 76, which means basically she was imprisoned the rest of her life. Zookeepers said Betty liked to stand at the edge of the zoo's flock, keeping watch over the other birds, and they often gave her eggs that they were ready to hatch so that she would raise newborn flamingos. She had one chick of her own and many generations of foster chicks.
That's wonderful. It says sterling life for Betty.
Right. Do you ever see a flock of wild flamingos? Have you ever gone anywhere
I don't think I've ever
flamingo?
I don't think I've ever seen wild flamingos. Have you?
In Florida, I have. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Just beautiful. I mean, they're everywhere.
So beautiful.
Gorgeous.
How about the story that we talked about maybe last week, which was Jonathan, the 190-year-old turtle?
Oh, right.
Who was celebrating his birthday.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's still
67 alive. Is good, but 190.
Yeah, exactly.
He's still living the good life on, I forget what island he lives on.
Not the Galapagos.
Oh, Seychelles.
Okay. Now, listen, I want to go back to the flamingos because remember the trend, right, where people would put the plastic flamingos in their yard?
Why was that? I forgot.
Yeah. Like they would be, and now you see that people flamingo, they sort of mess with other people, and you'll wake up in the morning and your friends have put out 50 or 75 plastic flamingos in your yard.
But it wasn't a joke at first.
No, it was a decor. It was
like
a decorator.
lawn ornamentation.
Yes. Like along with the glass ball.
Where would that have come from? Now the glass ball though has more historic roots. That's a British thing, I believe, from an English garden perspective. What do you call that ball thing that sits on it has?
I gave one of those as a wedding present.
Like the garden balls. They're like they can be blue. They sit on a pedestal and they're in an English garden
balls. Garden balls. That's from our producer, Gary. Thanks for that clarification there, Gary.
I don't think that's what they're called.
The old garden ball. But no, but the flamingo thing, I would imagine, to me, that kind of feels like America 1950s.
Yeah, I think you're right.
When, post-World War II, Florida was considered exotic, and people were traveling for the first time, en masse, and go, I'm bringing back a little slice of Florida with me and putting out these...
This plastic flamingo will remind me of what it was like in Orlando.
Because you would see those. Even in, growing up in Swissville, What do you say flamingo doing on Milligan Avenue?
You felt bad for the ones at the zoo.
Oh,
Imagine
please.
the ones that ended up in Swissvale.
Exactly. What the heck?
Gazing ball is what it's called.
Gazing ball. Very nice indeed. All right.
All right, coming up next, Dr. Carl Trueman will join us. The priestly caste, he calls it, of America's artistic elite. What does Whoopi Goldberg's recent statements about race tell us about how we are and what we think of today's America?
Hold on to your hat. That's next on The Ride Home.
101.5 WORD.
The Word of God. It's bold, it's direct, it cuts across the grain of popular culture. It illuminates the mind and transforms the soul. Its meaning doesn't change. It applies to everyone, everywhere. Hi, friend, this is John MacArthur, encouraging you to find out what the Bible means by what it says. Join me for clear teaching from God's compelling Word every Monday through Friday, right here on Grace to You.
Tomorrow morning at 7 on 101.5 WORD.
You know what you could do? You could put in a massive swimming pool in your basement and fill it with Skittles. Skittles. There'd be a big light-up slide. And you could slide headfirst into Skittle heaven.
Hey, it's Ryan from United Faith Mortgage. And maybe never in the history of time have we had a moment where home values have skyrocketed this much, while interest rates have dropped this much. And what that has brought into play for now, for so many Word FM listeners, is the cash out refinance loan. Some listeners are using that newfound equity or money to pay off debt or to do some very cool home upgrades at a time where our homes might continue to be more and more important. But hey, a Skittle paradise could also be cool. If you're curious about your options, we are United Faith Mortgage.
We pay your appraisal fees, up to $500. That's out-of-pocket money. Nice.
United Mortgage Corp, Melville, New York. MLS number 1330. Department of Banking. Mortgage Lender License number 22672.
Before Bamboo HR, I feel like crying just thinking about it.
We were still handling everything via paper, and we literally had paper stack.
It was all in spreadsheets and like folders.
From the moment I started using it, I felt calmer.
As soon as we started using the Bamboo onboarding checklist, I mean, it was extremely easy.
Headcount, turnover, years of service. There's just so many different reports that I use at different points in time.
I'm totally set free to focus on the people, to focus on development, to focus on team dynamics.
It's freeing me up to do more of the stuff that actually matters in HR, which is interacting with people, learning from them, and then building stuff for them.
Everything is in this one place. I can't even imagine what it would be like without Bamboo HR.
We're Bamboo HR, and we'd love to set you free to do great work. Come try our award-winning all-in-one HR software for free with no strings attached. Visit bamboohr.com/HR for this free trial offer. That's bamboohr.com/HR.
McQueen Building Company. It's about our people, but it's what others say about us that we really want you to hear.
It was a pleasure working with McQueen. Everything we agreed on in the contract was done and done to my satisfaction. I'll certainly have them for any future projects and have recommended them to friends.
Jeff works hard, is committed to success, and willing to go above and beyond in his zeal for the best outcome. I highly recommend Jeff, his work ethic, and his commitment to excellence.
McQueen Building Company. See our work for yourself at McQueenBuildingCompany.com.
We were talking just a few minutes ago about Queen Elizabeth celebrating her 70 years as reigning over the British Empire. You know, the ruling class, right? 70 years. And of course, here in America, our ruling class is the coconuts in Congress and, Washington, D.C.
And our sports stars.
Yeah. Well,
and music.
We have an entertainment class.
Yeah, the entertainment class. That's what I would call it.
Right?
That kind of encompasses all of them.
And part of the entertainment class is watching them fumble around, not knowing a whole heck of a lot oftentimes, and speaking in ignorance. Case in point, last week, Whoopi Goldberg. Here to talk to us about the priestly caste of America's artistic elite is Dr. Carl Trueman from Grove City College, where he is part of the Department of Biblical and Religious Studies at Grove City. And Carl, welcome back to the show.
Great to be back. Thanks for having me on again.
Carl, so it was a week ago that Whoopi Goldberg said something like, the Holocaust wasn't really about race. It was about man's inhumanity to man. Mm-hmm. And it was probably 30 seconds later, people started, blowing up Twitter and every other social media platform about what is she talking about. And I will give her credit that she apologized for it. It seemed sincere. However, I think the thing that was most shocking to me, Carl, and I want to get your read on this, is that, that seems like a really big faux pas. She gets a 2-week suspension. But there are people who've put out some errant tweet that somebody found from 13 years ago, Kevin Hart, and all of a sudden he's publicly shamed and can't host the Academy Awards again. This was very immediate. I'm surprised it wasn't worse.
Yes, it is interesting that it does seem that one rule applies to certain people and another rule applies to others. This, of course, was not Whoopi Goldberg's first, or I would say maybe even her most offensive comment. I think it was in about 2015 when, of course, it was very cool to be in favor of Roma Polanski at that point in time. She made this distinction between rape and what she called rape. And what Polanski had done to this underage girl was somehow considered by Ms. Goldberg to be less serious than real rape, than rape. Well, that's the kind of comment that is both remarkable in its stupidity and stunning in its offensiveness. So it's not as if she's a first-time offender. But as you rightly say, there are ordinary Joes in this world who will have some tweet of far less significance and offensiveness dug up from 10, 15 years ago, and it can be career-ending, or misgendering somebody in a public school classroom could lead to the end of a career in a way that the Hollywood elite really, I think they indulge themselves. They allow themselves to do things that they would not tolerate among other people like us.
And Carl, what's interesting, I mean, so many facets of it is that, as she's making the comments, she's surrounded by her other co-hosts on the show, and no one refuted her assertions about race. Everyone just kind of nodded their head, and it just kind of went on from there. You would imagine, and I don't know this to be true, that Whoopi Goldberg probably had never read a book about the Holocaust in her life and was able to shoot from the hip just freely because she's so comfortable in that position that no matter what she says, everyone, her co-hosts include, nod their head and just move it along.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, is Whoopi Goldberg a particularly evil person? No. Is she a very bright person? No. I think the sort of comment she makes is the kind of comment that if it was made in my classroom, I would correct the student immediately and, not rebuke them so much as just point out some of the facts and educate them in a better way. She has a platform given to her because she happens to be an actress, a media personality, not because she has any particular gift for commenting on public affairs or on history in any intelligent way. And that's interesting that we ascribe this sort of power to her and her co-hosts on the basis, really, of their competence in some other field. They're no more competent to comment on the Holocaust than the average plumber or electrician or in the Biblical and Religious Studies department at Grove City College would be. But they're allowed to comment on these things because somehow their acting ability or their status in the artistic community grants them that authority. In other words, we grant them that authority because we place a premium on the culture to which they belong.
Right, and there is something, there is a sickness that we show because I think someone like Whoopi Goldberg was put in that position, Carl, probably not because of her acting skills, but because she's an interesting personality. She has she seems like an iconoclast, and so people want to hear what someone like that would say about X, Y, and Z, but there's very little patience when you cross the line. And I guess that, again, getting back to the point I made first, it's still curious to me that it wasn't worse. And why do you think, why is she different? I mean, I brought up the Kevin Hart thing about the tweet he made, I think it was 11 years prior to him being offered the Academy Award hosting job. And then it was taken away from him. Is that because he's more of a newcomer? And so he hasn't elevated to what you're calling the priestly class yet?
Could be. I mean, I suspect there are always backstories to why punishments are meted out differently to different people. It depends who you know. It depends on how much money you're seen to be bringing in for whatever network you work with. I would imagine there are a variety of reasons that apply in this kind of situation. She's a black woman. That probably counts for something in the particular context in which we find ourselves at the moment. I mean, who knows? There might be contractual issues that the people she's working for have got to be very careful of. It's an interesting question. What we do know is, she's being treated very differently to how Kevin Hart was treated, or very differently to how a public school teacher would be treated if they crossed whatever line happens to have been set up at any given point in time.
Yes, but this says something about the nature of who we are as people, right? I mean, just the fact that we look to Hollywood, actors or celebrities to be informed, it really reflects poorly upon us as a society. It's it's not as though we want to tune into television and hear from someone who's a rocket scientist, although that's interesting unto itself. I guess the delivery is everything, but it just shows us how weak we are in our quest for real truth and knowledge, especially as believers in Jesus, that we acquiesce to Hollywood celebrity for what we consider to be truth.
Yes, I would agree. I think America, and increasingly the West, because where America leads, Western Europe tends to follow, is an increasingly celebrity-led culture. And that makes sense because the things that are most influential in most people's lives are the TV or the internet now. And it's the people who have their hands on the levers of power and the TV, internet, etc., who are the ones influencing how we think. And they tend to be those who are very slick at marketing themselves in very, very plausible ways. I got a good face for radio, so I'm never going to be that kind of influential person.
Well, thanks for joining us.
But yeah, I think that the cult of Hollywood runs very, very deep in our culture. And Christians are not immune to it.
No.
We have our own subculture of Christian celebrities, and we also buy into the broader secular culture of celebrities as well.
We are as guilty as anyone.
Dr. Carl Trueman with us, Department of Biblical and Religious Studies at Grove City College. Dr. Trueman is the author of the new book, The Rise and Triumph of the Modern Self, Cultural Amnesia, Expressive Individualism, and the Road to Sexual Revolution. Carl, I want to ask you, this is about Whoopi, but it's also about, a larger question, that why we want, it seems like current culture wants every person, regardless of their expertise or job classification, to be commenting on social issues. So Whoopi can't just be an actress. Now we have to look to her as some kind of champion of whatever our justice cause is. And if you're the CEO of Target, you can't just be the CEO of Target. Now you have to be advocating for some kind of justice movement, or you can't sell batteries, or you can't have a hot dog cart, or whatever it is. It seems like we're not permitted anymore to just have a job and do it well. It has to, the only way we can have cultural significance or carry any capital is if we bring justice along with us. And I mean that in air quotes.
That's an interesting question. I think it's not susceptible to an easy answer, but I think a big part of the answer is the abolition of what I would call the pre-political. Typically throughout history, we've had pre-political organizations, the family, for example, the Boy Scouts, the various clubs, sports clubs, etc., that have been constituted as fora where human beings are able to socially connect with each other without it being politicized. What's really happened over the last 50 or 60 years is that all of those typically pre-political, what we call private spaces, have become politicized, enhanced and reinforced a lot by social media, making everything transparent. Now, my private political views are no longer private because maybe I stick them up on Twitter or I put them on Facebook. We're seeing the dissolution of the boundary between the private and the public, and the abolition of the space where we used to be able to operate without politics interfering. And I think that has a large part to do with the kind of phenomena we see with Whoopi Goldberg.
Yes. So then this is a harbinger then of the world to come, right? Where deep thinking in many ways, especially in the public arena, is all going to but disappear. People will stop reading books. Newspapers are by the wayside as well. We're headline and clicks away from our fuller education, and we're our worst as a society and the world because of it.
I think that could be the way forward, yes, unfortunately. I was saying to a friend the other day, I don't long for death, but I'm quite glad that I'm not 20 anymore and I have less of this to look forward to. I do think that in terms of the broader culture, we're seeing the rise of an intellectually very, very superficial, non-serious culture. I mean, even this program now, we're debating Whoopi Goldberg, the sense in which of how silly is that we're talking about Whoopi Goldberg in a serious way. I'd want to say that the only response we can give to this is not really a macro-cultural response, but I think individuals and families, we can make a difference by striving not to be superficial. We can make time to read books, to instill the joy of reading books in our children. So I think there are things we can do at a micro level, if you like, but the broader culture is heading into a kind of a new era of illiteracy, if I could put it that way, that is very, very disturbing and likely very superficial.
That's Dr. Carl Trueman. Look up his new book, The Rise and Triumph of the Modern Self, Cultural Amnesia, Expressive Individualism, and the Road to Sexual Revolution. Carl, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
My son is in the 2nd grade at our local public school, and yet somehow he gets to attend a Bible class during his school day because of LifeWise Academy.
We're seeing public school students from urban, rural, and suburban communities who have never heard the basic stories of how Jesus came to rescue us.
Hey Word FM listeners, I'm Joel Penton, founder of LifeWise Academy, and we bring Bible education to public school students during the school day. Believe it or not, in 1952, the Supreme Court ruled that students can actually be released from public school during school hours to receive religious instruction. However, almost no one knows it's possible. LifeWise Academy provides the structure and tools for local communities to put to work. This program is taking off nationwide, and our kids' futures are being changed. Would you consider leading the charge to start a LifeWise in your neighborhood school? The first step is to voice your support at lifewiseacademy.org.
If you're in the market for metal roofing, siding, and garage doors, Kaufman Metals in Bedford can meet your expectations with friendly professional service. Their equipment is right up to date with the newest technology and ready to produce your standard and customized metal panels and trims to your exact specifications for any project with the fastest turnaround in the industry. Plus, Kaufman Metals offers complete do-it-yourself building packages included with computer-generated drawings. Kaufman Metals also provides sales and service for CHI residential and commercial garage doors. They deliver any order, large or small, to any place with full-service rollback trucks and trailers with a Moffett forklift to set building packages conveniently close to your project. And just so you know, they offer contractors discounts as well. Visit KaufmanMetals.com or call 814-623-6044 or stop in at 6146 Lincoln Highway, Bedford, PA.
I find that patients just want to be heard.
Stock Family Dentistry, where exceptional dentistry meets compassionate care.
That takes time to sit down and listen to what the patient has to say. Listen to their past experiences, because that's all important in how I then present treatment to them, formulate a treatment plan for them, and how we move forward with their treatment at our office.
My mommy is a really good dentist, and she'll take good care of you.
Perry Highway in Wexford at StockFamilyDentistry.com.
As a veteran media sales professional, a six-figure income is within your reach. I'm Andrew Pawlowski, General Sales Manager of Word FM. Here at Salem Media Pittsburgh, we offer highly experienced sales and marketing professionals like you all the support and tools necessary to reach your earning potential through custom on-air campaigns, unique events, and over 50 social media and digital products. To learn more about our open position, please email me at andrew@salempittsburgh.com. Salem Media is an equal opportunity employer.
Last Wednesday, there was a live-streamed Facebook event where a local pastor in Tennessee urged his followers to bring all their Harry Potter and Twilight copies and burn them. Of course, I said the event was live streamed. Greg Locke, who is the head pastor at Global Vision Bible Church, said in an Instagram post, quote, "Bring all your Harry Potter stuff. Laugh all you want, haters. I don't care. It's witchcraft 100%. All your Twilight books and movies, that mess is full of spells, demonism, shapeshifters, and occultism. Stop allowing demonic influences into your home." And apparently the book burning and DVDs and whatnot went off without a hitch.
Mm-hmm.
There's a rise of this, don't you think?
I don't. There's all this talk about "quote unquote" book banning,
right,
which I don't think is book banning. I think if an organization like a school board decides that they're not going to offer a book, it's not that they banned the book. It's very different, than they just decided they're not going to offer it in the curriculum. That's not banning it.
Right.
Banning a book is the Bible being banned in a communist country. That's a banning.
Yes.
You're put in prison if you're found with it. I thought we were past burning books.
I don't know.
I thought we decided at what she had accomplished and what she had in her head when she started the first one. Now, putting Twilight in the same category is that's not right. That's the thing I'm probably maddest about. You cannot compare them.
And if you want to call out, demonism and the nature of this.
And like I said, I
get that.
I really think people can disagree. But I think, we can allow that people have different views on this.
At the same time, when you are live streaming your book burning on Facebook, that says something about the congregation that it feels like a PR stunt.
Right.
That's all.
What is a PR stunt?
Well,
And Twilight is nowhere close to the type of writing that you'll find in Harry Potter.
No, it's true. We'll take a quick break. When you do come back.
I just want to stand up for good writing. Is it okay to do that? I don't mean to diss you if you read Twilight and enjoyed it. I'm just saying it's not like... And Harry Potter isn't the same as the Brothers Karamazov. No. There's just different levels.
Right. For different ages.
For different people. Different times.
Ask Alexa to play the word Pittsburgh to hear us there. We're on your Google speaker, too. Plus iHeart, TuneIn, and on Odyssey. 101.5 WORD-FM, Pittsburgh.
With SRN News, I'm Jason Walker. Key advisor to President Biden is accused of being a bully, but the administration plans to keep him on the job.
Top scientist Dr. Eric Lander is the director of the Office of Science and Technology Policy and science advisor to President Biden. A complaint about him prompted a White House review. It found evidence that he bullied staffers and treated them disrespectfully. Dr. Lander has apologized to his colleagues for treating them poorly or speaking to them disrespectfully. The administration says he'll get counseling and will be required to make changes. The staffer who filed the original complaint was reassigned. The White House calls that appropriate. I'm Rita Foley.
Biden administration task force issuing a set of new recommendations. It would make it easier for federal workers and contractors to form unions. This is SRN News.
Why Doing It Right? Roofing, siding, remodeling? It's simple. It's in their name.
Doing It Right uses only top quality materials and employs only experienced installation and management people to install and oversee your project.
Family owned and operated for 38 years, and with over 45 years of industry experience, you can be confident that your project will be installed the correct way.
Doing It Right does business honestly, taking no money down and collecting balance upon completion.
You'll receive a lifetime labor warranty from Doing It Right.
Doing It Right does all work to manufacturers, National Roofing Contractors Association, and Vinyl Siding Institute guidelines and specifications for a complete and headache-free installation.
Doing It Right is an Owens Corning Platinum contractor and James Hardy preferred contractor.
Most importantly, they're affordable, offering great financing options and accepting all major credit cards.
Be sure to mention John and Kathy for a discount off your roofing, siding, and remodeling estimates.
Call 724-NEW-ROOF or find them at roofingcontractorpittsburgh.com.
Want it done right, call Doing It Right.
I love you, a bushel and a peck, a bushel and a peck, and a hug around the neck. Hi there, it's me, Marcia, at the Spring House. Don't you just love an old-fashioned love song like that? We sure do love old-fashioned at the Spring House, too. Old-fashioned values, well-loved antiques, and old-time family recipes. So that's exactly what we'll be cooking for you and your sweetheart on the upcoming Valentine's Day Sweetheart Dinner. Grilled marinated flank steak, celebration chicken Romano, Pearl's cheesy potatoes, buttered steamed green beans, reunion salad, your choice of a from-scratch dessert, Bev's brown rolls, and pink lemonade. How's that sound for old-fashioned goodness? We'll light the candles and serve you on china as you enjoy live music by beloved local musician Bob Podish. Call 724-228-3339 to reserve your seat or go to springhousemarket.com for details.
This entertainment answer brought to you by Exergen. Owen Wilson stars in the new rom-com Marry Me. What does he say makes Jennifer Lopez the perfect co-star in this one?
Just the other day, we're doing a scene where she's dancing with my students. When they were doing that scene, everyone was watching the monitor, even the security guys, just because it's fun watching her dance. We definitely don't need a double for her dancing.
Marry Me, rated PG-13. For more answers, head over to theentertainmentanswer.com.
Trip to Europe. Visit all 30 Major League Baseball stadiums. Go skydiving. Okay, so you know what you want to do in retirement, but do you know how to get there? Tune into Your Retirement Blueprint with Kurt Kanodik and Ethan Lane of Accurate Solutions Group, Saturdays at 10 a.m. to get answers to your retirement planning questions. Plan today so you can do the things you've always dreamt about doing in retirement. Listen every Saturday morning at 10 to Your Retirement Blueprint with Accurate Solutions Group. Investment advisory services offered through ASG Investment Management, LLC.
Low clouds expected for tonight. We could see a late night flurry with a low of 18. Tomorrow, cloudy skies for the morning hours, then intervals of clouds and sunshine in the afternoon. We'll reach a high tomorrow of 30. Mostly cloudy skies for tomorrow night with a low of 26. As we head to the middle of the week on Wednesday, we'll see mostly cloudy skies with a high of 43. With your AccuWeather forecast, I'm Drew Shannon.
Welcome to another edition of The Ride Home with John and Kathy, live from the Salem-Pittsburgh studios. And now here are your hosts, John Hall and Kathy Emmons.
Hey, thanks for coming along. Gorgeous Monday afternoon, absolutely beautiful. Sunny, bright, blue skies, and nice warm temperatures. It's funny how 42 degrees feels like,
Oh, I know.
Feels very, very good. Okay, we've been talking, and I'm sure that you've well aware this is yourself. Maybe your favorite restaurant or watering hole has closed, of course, because of COVID and the pandemic. I saw a piece today about this, which is, I think this sort of is the cherry on top of everything. The Ye Old Fighting Cocks pub in St. Albans, England, has seen it all. Since its first brick was laid as early as 793 near the ruins of an ancient Roman city well before the UK was formed.
Wow.
The drinking house has survived civil and world wars, famine, and the spread of the bubonic plague, but hardships brought on by the coronavirus pandemic means the pub, which Guinness World Records has reportedly called England's oldest, though others contest that title, is closing its doors forever. So the pub is it's 1,229 years old.
Oh my, I can't even imagine that. And they closed because they just can't make it go with COVID. Right. They just don't have enough people to work.
Yeah. Christo Toffoli, who took over the lease of the heavily beamed pub in 2012, told the Washington Post that the pandemic and the government's public health restrictions squeezed his business until he couldn't meet its financial obligations.
So depressing.
Its insolvency leaves Mitchells and Butlers, which owns the pub, open to seeking new management of the possibly more than 1,200-year-old business. I mean, how do you stay in business 1,200
I
years?
can't believe it. And yet, when you look at local closings, and a lot of these closures, thank goodness, were temporary. I'm just looking at an article here from Pittsburgh Magazine at the end of 2021 talking about the number of Pittsburgh places that had to close because of COVID.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're talking about Dish Osteria in the South Side. We're talking about Gaucho downtown, Spirit in Arsenal, the High Hold in Coriopolis, the Bingham Tavern in Mount Washington. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. Now, I think that all of these restaurants have reopened since then.
As other venues?
No, they just closed temporarily because of COVID, okay. and they're able to rebound. But like Noodlehead, closed through the holiday, according to the Post-Gazette. Ironborn Pizza closed its Millville location until it could reopen safely. I'm not sure if it has yet or not. That just gives you a little sample into the number of places here locally which have suffered the same thing. They've been around a lot less than 1,000 years.
Right. Okay,
Wait, how many years?
1,229.
Okay, so are they thinking that they would reopen that?
Well, it's not the first time that this has happened. That, there have been periods, I think that, before this new management, it was closed for about 9 months until they were able to reconfigure. So even though it's closed or presumed to close soon, there is, hope that new life will come back to it. I mean, something that's 1,200 years old, gone forever, it's kind of hard to imagine, isn't it? It's like burning down a redwood.
This is a terrible thing to ask you on the air because I didn't I'll ask you ahead of time and let you prepare for it.
I always like these questions. Here it comes.
But what do you think the oldest place is that you've ever been in?
Like physically?
Like a building. Maybe it was a church or maybe it was can you think of a...
I've been to Notre Dame Cathedral.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's very old.
I have not been to Greece, so I've not been to the Parthenon.
Okay.
Probably, I would just say, quickly, Notre Dame. Why not?
Okay.
Yeah. How about you?
Well, I hadn't thought about it either.
But you've traveled.
I have. I would say Borobudur, which is the largest Buddhist temple in the world in
How old is that?
Indonesia. I think I think it was built in 800 or something.
Yeah.
So it's very, very old.
And
you know what's crazy about it is that it's the largest Buddhist temple in the world, so it's gigantic. It's absolutely huge. For 500 years, it was lost because of volcanic eruption and jungle had just totally overgrown. So 500 years, nobody knew something that enormous was there.
And they uncovered it.
It wasn't until a Dutch man who was like the regent. I don't know. So the Dutch had colonized Indonesia, and so he was like the regent that was in charge of the area. And he had gone out and talked to people who lived outside of populated areas, and they had told him the story, and he thought it was a fable. He's like, no, there's a story. No, there's this really, really big temple. And he was like, well, how big could it be if no one knows where it is? And they're like, no, it really is. And he had heard it from enough people. He thought, well, maybe it's true.
That's cool.
And so he mounted a whole team, this whole posse of people, and they uncovered it.
How long ago was that?
That was probably in the 19th century.
No kidding. And it's beautiful?
Yes, it's very beautiful. And I just have to tell you again how enormous it is to think of something that large being misplaced.
Right. I think it's a big big earth, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so look at Notre Dame. Notre Dame, of course, famously burnt, right? The roof collapsed on Notre Dame. They're in the rebuilding phase.
We watched it happen. Remember in the studio that day? That was really so...
So what will that look like? What will a house of worship look like coming back into the 21st century, reconfigured by not a Christian view? I would imagine, the French government has a lot to say what Notre Dame will look like. I told you, the first time I saw Notre Dame, I was, in your mind's eye, when you hear about things like, the Buddhist temple or Notre Dame, you create something. But for me to walk into Notre Dame, as beautiful as it is, and of course it is, it's more of a tourist attraction than it is a house of worship, from my perspective.
Sure. Yeah, because you just think about that when you think about Paris.
Right.
Whether you're a Christian, whether you're a Muslim, whether you have any belief structure whatsoever.
Well, like the Buddhist temple. You're not Buddhist, but you're going to go visit because it's a tourist thing, right? And so many non-Christians go to Notre Dame because it's on their to-do list. Sure.
I'm sure there were a lot of observant Buddhists there the day I was there thinking, well, look at this, lady who just wandered up.
Happy to have you. You're spending something.
I did pay to get in.
There you go. See, you're part of the process.
Okay.
And look, we're all impressed. We're not too far here from 7 Parkway Center. You go down the hill, and there's Pittsburgh's oldest tavern, which I think is 200 years old, and it's been closed forever. At the
bottom of the hill.
Yeah. It's been closed forever, and it's been uncovered that it's the oldest tavern because someone was going to tear it down.
But their streak has been broken.
Yeah. Well.
So it's in like the West End area.
Right, exactly. But 200 years old is old for the United States of America.
Right, absolutely nothing compared to... Yeah. The Brits look at us, again, as always, and kind of snicker. Coming up next, our understanding of Paul probably impacts how we look at the gospel in general.
Oh.
Do you think?
Undoubtedly.
He's loved and hated. There's no question about it. Jen Rosner is going to join us next to talk about it.
101.5 101.5 WORD.
Once I figured out, it was a little boy, then I heard his heartbeat, I just cried. You guys helped me make my mind up.
You've heard that seeing is believing. That's certainly true when it comes to pregnancies. It's been shown that abortion-minded women who see their babies on an ultrasound are likely to have that baby. Today, you can provide a free ultrasound for a pregnant woman for just $28, the cost to save the life of a baby. So whether you want to save 1 or 5 or hundreds of babies, Word FM and Preborn are here to help. Call today, 833-850-BABY, or go to wordfm.com.
You know what you could do? You could add onto your house an extra room and fill it with white fluffy sand that feels like the beach.
Pump in seagull sounds.
Paint waves on the walls.
And cute little sand crabs.
Hey, it's Ryan from United Faith Mortgage. And maybe never in the history of time have we had a moment where home values have skyrocketed this much while interest rates have dropped this much. And what that has brought into play for now, for so many Word FM listeners, is the cash out refinance loan. Some listeners are using that newfound equity or money to pay off debt or to do some very cool home upgrades at a time where our homes might continue to be more and more important. But hey, a beach room could be very cool. If you're curious about your options, we are United Faith Mortgage.
We pay your appraisal fees, up to $500. That's out-of-pocket money you'd have to pay before closing. Nice!
United Mortgage Corp, Melville, New York. MLS number 1330. Department of Banking. Mortgage Lender License number 22672.
I struggled with symptoms like frequent gas and stomach pain for years.
I was bloated all the time with daily diarrhea.
At first, I thought it was what I was eating.
I kept thinking it was stomach issues.
So I did my research and talked to my doctor, and we finally uncovered the truth.
It was actually EPI. Exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI, is a condition where your pancreas is unable to help break down your food.
It can lead to symptoms like diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, unexplained weight loss, and oily stools.
And EPI symptoms can be confused with those of other common digestive conditions, like irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's, and celiac disease.
So getting to the right diagnosis meant being more open with my doctor about the severity of my symptoms and how often they were happening.
But there's good news. EPI is manageable, so don't wait any longer. Use the symptom checker at identifyepi.com and schedule a visit or call with your doctor to ask, could I have EPI?
Sponsored by AbbVie.
When it comes to your child's education, consistency is key. And in a world that's been anything but, parents have found an unshakable educational partner in Eden Christian Academy, where students experience an engaging, rock-solid Christian education at each of their 3 North Hills campuses, enabling them to thrive academically, spiritually, and socially. Schedule a personal tour today and see what a consistent, quality pre-K through 12th grade education can offer your child at EdenChristianAcademy.org.
The Ride Home streaming live on YouTube at The Word Pittsburgh. Happy to be welcoming Jen Rosner back to the program, Affiliate Assistant Professor of Systematic Theology at Fuller Theological Seminary in sunny Pasadena. Jen, welcome back.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
Always good to hear your voice, Jen. Today, Jen, you come at us with a very interesting topic about Paul and our understanding of him as a Jew and how it impacts our understanding of the gospel. I mean, to be honest, I've never thought along those particular lines before.
Yeah, it's a really interesting topic when you want to think about, the Christian gospel and the Jewish people. A lot of the conversations oftentimes end up coming back to Paul. And it turns out that a lot of Christians have an understanding of Paul in which Paul sort of divorced himself from Judaism and found Christianity to be this sort of richer thing. And it's fascinating. I mean, in recent years, there's been a whole lot of Pauline scholarship that suggests that that's kind of an embedded reading within Christian theology that may not be right. And it makes a big difference, I think, in again, conversations with Jewish-Christian relations or Christians trying to understand the significance of God's covenant with Israel. Again, a lot of it seems to sort of hinge on how we view Paul.
Well, Paul is a tough character. I mean, there's no question about it. Intensely intellectual, incredibly studied, and also personality-wise, incredibly committed. We know what he was like before his conversion and his commitment to persecuting Christians. And, of course, we see what happened in his life after his conversion. So in just as a man, a very curious, dynamic individual, and just an incredible life force in what we have come to understand as far as the inner workings of just day-to-day church stuff. So as a Messianic Jew, talk about his place in your mind.
Yeah, I mean, Kathy, it's so interesting, even just the way that you just described it, which is all true. But the use of that word conversion, right, which is, I think everybody would talk about Paul's conversion experience. It's really embedded in the way that we think about these concepts. But it's interesting because if we press into that word, it makes it sound as though he sort of converted away from something.
That he became less Jewish.
Something.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He left Judaism behind entirely.
Yeah, that's
so
a good point.
that word... but like I said, I think most Christians would be like, yeah, of course Paul converted. And so then I think we could say, well, what are the implications even in that concept? Well, it's probably that he left Judaism behind in some way. And so it's really interesting. I mean, a lot of Pauline scholarship for the last 500 years actually goes back to Martin Luther's understanding of Paul. Martin Luther is this, major figure in what becomes the Protestant Reformation. Martin Luther has a major bone to pick with the Catholic Church, and he sort of has this revelation in reading Paul. And he kind of assumes that Paul had a similar bone to pick with Judaism that Martin Luther had to pick with the Catholic Church. So he kind of reads his own story and context back into Paul. And so he understands Paul to sort of be throwing out Judaism and creating something new, which is, as it turns out, exactly what Martin Luther did with regard to the Catholic Church. And what's fascinating is that understanding of Paul basically endures until the mid-20th century, when you get these really significant events like the Holocaust, like the creation of the modern state of Israel, like the Second Vatican Council and the Catholic Church, where you get the church kind of saying, whoa, like we've missed something. Like, how could Christian theology have sort of indirectly supported Hitler? I mean, Hitler drew from Martin Luther in his campaign and in his ideology. And so you get this really remarkable era. And one of the things that I think is really significant about this era is new perspectives on Paul. And now you actually have what's called the Paul within Judaism camp, which interestingly is actually a lot of Jewish Pauline scholars who are reading Paul through a Jewish lens, not like a Gentile Christian lens that might not be as dialed in with the nuances of Second Temple Judaism. And they're saying, wait a second, their starting point is that Paul never had a radical break with Judaism, that Paul was a Torah-observant Jew until the day that he died. And so key Pauline passages start to look a little bit different. And this sort of Paul within Judaism camp raises a new set of questions that the Christian church, kind of in the shadow or in the aftermath of Martin Luther and other figures as well, hasn't really been asking when we read Paul.
That's good. So, Jenna, it does, obviously make sense. How can you leave Judaism behind? It's baked into your DNA, essentially.
Well, and Jesus didn't leave his Jewishness behind.
Right.
He fulfilled the law in every way. So I appreciate that correction, talking about, I think you're right in saying that conversion really isn't an appropriate thing. If you're reading Paul, I think that, well, I should ask you the question and not answer it. Do you feel like when he is explaining the person of Jesus then, Jen, it's a fulfillment rather than a change of course?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's exactly how Paul and his contemporaries and Jesus' own, disciples and apostles viewed Jesus. And I think Paul, I think one of the incredible things about Paul's letters is that he's really kind of trying to work this stuff out, and there's times when he's like, it's a great mystery, I don't think Paul knew, and of course you have to think of him, in his context, he didn't know that 2,000 years were going to pass and Jesus still hasn't come back. He's he hadn't yet lived through the parting of the ways, which we're sort of looking back on, this process whereby Judaism and Christianity become these entirely separate and in many ways mutually exclusive religious communities. Paul's context is much different than that. And yes, I mean, he's reading Israel's scriptures. He's reading essentially our Old Testament, and he's understanding Jesus in those categories. And not in the way that we often are, even if we're not aware of it, which is sort of through the lens of church history, through the lens of the parting of the ways between Judaism and Christianity, through the lens of Martin Luther. And what's so interesting is that that's just almost implicit in a Christian understanding of Paul. We don't always think about it. And one of the things that these sort of Paul within Judaism scholars are trying to do is remove those layers that have, for better or worse, been kind of added into or baked into our understanding of Paul. And that's kind of what leads them to ask new questions of Paul and of his understanding of key concepts.
We're talking with Jen Rosner from Fuller Theological Seminary in Pasadena, California, about Paul. So, Jen, then what are those key questions? I mean, as you engage and peel away the layers of Paul in your life, and especially you as a Jew as well, I mean, I'm sure you think about this often, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll just kind of highlight two things that I think are really interesting and important. I mean, the first is, as we read our New Testament, we get a particular portrait of Paul in the book of Acts that sometimes does not seem to add up with the Paul of his letters. So this is like kind of an oft-touted, disconnect in the New Testament. So, for example, in the book of Acts, we have Paul in Acts 21 undergoing these purification rites and reporting to the temple in order to sort of ward off rumors that he was telling Jewish followers of Jesus that, oh, you don't need to worry about all that Judaism stuff anymore. He kind of hears this, and he's kind of horrified, and he's like, what can I do to show that the rumors aren't true? And they say, go through these purification rites, go to the temple. And Paul does it. He does it. And then in Acts 23, we get Paul calling himself present tense. He says, I am a Pharisee. And so you get this very, very Jewish Paul in the book of Acts, and this Paul who seems to be kind of slamming the law in different places in his letters. And some New Testament scholars would say, oh, well, that's because Acts is not historical. Acts is kind of Luke's portrayal of Paul, and we can't really trust it, which I find to be a deeply unsatisfying answer. Yeah. And so with this Paul, with this perspective on Paul that Paul never left behind Judaism, it reconciles the Paul of his letters with the Paul of Acts, which I think is a really significant thing in terms of just sort of New Testament coherence. And part of how it does that is it raises a question that interestingly has not historically been raised very much, which is Paul's audience. Who is it that Paul is writing to when he's saying things that seem negative about the law? And if you read Paul's letters through this lens, it almost jumps off the page that Paul is writing to Gentiles. Paul is writing to Gentile Christians. That's his whole mission. He's the apostle to the Gentiles. And he's telling them, and this sort of goes in accordance with the ruling in Acts 15, which is that Gentile followers of Jesus don't have to observe Torah. They don't have to live like Jews. And Paul's reinforcing that in his letters. He's saying, hey, Gentiles, there's these Judaizers out there, and they're telling you that in order to follow Jesus, you have to do all the Jewish practices, and that's not true. And so, again, paying attention to Paul's audience and realizing that he is speaking to Gentiles in most of the context, at least where he's explicitly stated that. And again, it sort of harmonizes this Paul of Acts with Paul of his letters in a way that I think is really important in terms of getting a sense of who this figure was. It always troubled me that the Paul of Acts didn't line up with the Paul of his letters, and I think in my experience and in my research, this is sort of the best answer to that. It does line up. The problem is not with Paul. The problem is with this lens through which we've read him, where it seems like we have these two different Pauls, but actually it's the same Paul, and it just has to do with our context and our lenses through which we have understood him.
Dr. Jen Rosner with us, affiliated assistant professor of systematic theology at Fuller Theological Seminary in Pasadena, California. So, Jen, we had N.T. Wright on the program talking about his book on Paul about a year. I was going to say it was a year and a half ago, but that's COVID time, which means it was probably 3.5 years ago. And that I found that to be a fascinating book, but I don't want to get too much into the weeds for people who aren't familiar with all that. So let me kind of back up and look at a bigger perspective and say that we have this Bible that we have been given, and it has an Old Testament and it has a New Testament, but it's one story. Right, from beginning to end, from the garden to the city is one story. And so we have, to make it easier for us, we have artificially made, separations. We've made chapter titles and we've made chapter numbers and verses just so we can reference and whatever. But really, it's one story. So if we look at Paul as being just one writer, one different writer in the same big story, right? I think that might give us a better perspective on the fact that it's not, he wasn't reinventing anything, because Jesus didn't reinvent anything. Jesus was restoring what was supposed to be in place at the very beginning and will restore it fully at the end. So the now and the not yet of that. So I don't mean to be too, I was trying to make it simpler and perhaps I made it too complex, but speak into that as you close, just about looking at Paul in that larger vision.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point, to read our Bibles as one book, one story of God's covenant with humanity. And really, at the center of that story stands God's covenant with the people of Israel. And I feel like there's not enough talk, in my opinion, in the Christian world about God's covenant with Israel and how it is really the continuous thread throughout the entire story. So if we kind of miss that in our reading of the Old Testament, then of course we're going to read a Paul who could, care less about Judaism and sort of turns away from Judaism, because I think that Israel piece, the ongoing, enduring nature of God's covenant with Israel, is this thread throughout the entire biblical narrative, and if we read the story in that way, then we should have these red flags that go up. Like, wait a second, that doesn't really make sense that Paul would be opposed to Judaism, because the Jewish people are God's chosen people, and God's covenant with them is irrevocable. So I think that's oftentimes, and I think this is another reason why the Old Testament can be so confusing to Christians sometimes. Right? There's just parts of it that are weird and they don't make sense, and we don't understand how they apply to us. And so I really think that kind of pressing into this notion of God's covenant with Israel, what was it about? What does it look like? What does it mean in terms of understanding the whole story? From my perspective, is like an interpretive key to really understanding the entire Bible, including Paul.
That's good. Jen, I think that's a perfect place for us to stop and put a bookmark on this conversation so that next month when you join us, we'd invite you to go deeper into God's covenant with Israel.
Great. I'd love it.
Fabulous. Jen Rosner, she joins us from Fuller Theological Seminary. We'll take a quick break. We got much more ahead. It's The Ride Home. We're Pittsburgh's Christian Talk here on Word FM. Your mom always used to say, listen, be careful about the company you keep, right? Because who you hang out with really defines in many ways who you are. Well, when you look at Grove City College, the community of students who call this place home, I believe, is really something special, because Grovers care about and for each other. And there's more than 150 student organizations that will prove that every day. Also, you just got to look at the alumni, the Grover alumni. It's gigantic, and they care for each other decades after they've graduated from Grove City College. So if your child is looking for next year or in the near future, I'd recommend you look at Grove City College, because the company you keep is really quite excellent.
What about the company you keep, John, as far as the people who are teaching you, or the people who are advising you, or the people that are kind of helping you figure out yourself over 4 years? That's, I think, probably just as important as your peers, right? Especially when you're between 18 and 22 and you're trying to figure out what life is about and how you can fit in and what your career path is like and what your gifting is. The faculty that are there to advise at Grove City College are truly outstanding. They're people with big minds and big hearts. And your child might end up a different person because of the mentorship they could have at a place like Grove City.
Look at Grove City College, a classical campus 1 hour from Pittsburgh, gcc.edu.
This is important news. If you have unfiled tax returns, the IRS is shifting gears and ramping up investigations on non-filers this year. If you fail to file your tax returns for a year or more, or you owe back taxes, now's the time to call Optima Tax Relief before the IRS finds you. Optima is America's #1 most trusted tax resolution firm, specialized in helping individuals, families, and businesses get right with the IRS. They're experts in the Taxpayer Relief Initiative, a powerful new program that can make resolving tax issues easier. A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau, Optima's award-winning team has helped thousands of people protect their paychecks, bank accounts, homes, and businesses by putting their tax problems to rest, resolving over $1 billion in tax debts for their clients. Call Optima now for a free consultation.
Call 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
We are everywhere on your radio at 101.5 WORD-FM Pittsburgh, at wordfm.com, the Word FM mobile app, iHeart, TuneIn, and Odyssey.
When kids need medical care, they will often face stressful and life-changing experiences. They miss out on the things that make being a kid fun. Starlight Children's Foundation has delivered happiness to 17 million seriously ill kids and their families at more than 800 children's hospitals and healthcare facilities. Our programs entertain and inspire hospitalized kids. Learn more at starlight.org. That's starlight.org.
Low clouds expected for tonight. We could see a late night flurry with a low of 18. Tomorrow, cloudy skies for the morning hours, then intervals of clouds and sunshine in the afternoon. We'll reach a high tomorrow of 30. Mostly cloudy skies for tomorrow night with a low of 26. As we head to the middle of the week on Wednesday, we'll see mostly cloudy skies with a high of 43. With your AccuWeather forecast, I'm Drew Shannon.
Does this make sense, John?
Does what make sense, Kat?
Chopsticks.
Boy, I sure want them to make sense. And with every good intention, whenever I go into a restaurant and they offer me chopsticks, yes, I grab them enthusiastically. But then about 4 bites into my meal, I go, fork, please. Give me the fork. I mean, yeah, they make sense to the billions and billions of Asians, but I don't feel compelled as some Caucasian guy to have to eat with them. So to me, they don't make any sense. No, I say no. I have not mastered them well enough to go, I'm going to eat a bowl of rice with chopsticks. It's not going to happen. Sure, I can grab, a piece of broccoli or a piece of chicken, but the finer points of it all, it doesn't make any sense at all. It's craziness. I get hungry. It makes me yearn. Does it make sense? It doesn't make any sense to me. Does it make sense to you?
Sure does, John.
Oh, get out of here.
You know why? Because if you're eating Asian food, then you should eat it the way the Asians eat the food.
Get out of here.
Yes, you should. You pick up your chopsticks. You learn. How hard are they to operate, John? It's not like I'm asking you to work a forklift. Grab the chopsticks.
You have to get all snooty about it.
This is how I feel, John. I do sound snooty, and I apologize. But I'm sticking by my point of view because I believe it's correct. Right. When you're eating the dish, you're committed to the chopstick to the last grain of rice. You're not picking up an American Western implement for any intervention. No, you're sticking with how you started. And that's how you're going to finish.
I don't feel bad about it.
Chopsticks beginning to end. I love it.
All right. That makes sense to you.
I have a nice set. I have a set of 6.
Specials.
They're like fancy.
So you made your family follow along as well.
I haven't made them. It's not like I run a camp.
All right. Does this make sense? Kind of funny. It's a food thing as well. KFC.
Oh.
Does Kentucky Fried Chicken make sense? I say 100%. You kidding me? It's greasy and meaty, and it's a mess. But man, is it good.
It's so good. And
I love it.
And you know what? Best coleslaw.
Oh, excellent coleslaw.
The coleslaw.
Kentucky
Are you
Fried.
kidding me?
No, see, I thought you might err on the snoot side there.
No snoot from me.
And go, I don't want that Kentucky Fried Chicken. I love KFC. How often? I don't eat it often.
I haven't had it in a couple years. Oh, well. But I have had the coleslaw often.
Yeah. I'm going to go through the drive-thru and just do a quick little meal.
Listen, I go through the drive-thru and just get coleslaw.
Really?
I sure do. They know how to do it.
Yeah, they do. Okay, so
Chopsticks, yes.
Nope, don't make sense. KFC.
I feel good about it.
Perfect sense right here. That makes sense.
Word FM, WORD.
With nearly any invention, the inventor knows it best. He or she knows how it works. This week on A New Beginning, Pastor Greg Laurie takes us to God's words on the family. The family was his idea, and he has a good idea how it works best. Join us this week on A New Beginning with Pastor Greg Laurie.
A New Beginning with Greg Laurie, weekday mornings at 10:30 on WORD. If you're in the market for metal roofing, siding, and garage doors, Kaufman Metals in Bedford can meet your expectations with friendly professional service. Their equipment is right up to date with the newest technology and ready to produce your standard and customized metal panels and trims to your exact specifications for any project with the fastest turnaround in the industry. Plus, Kaufman Metals offers complete do-it-yourself building packages included with computer-generated drawings. Kaufman Metals also provides sales and service for CHI residential and commercial garage doors. They deliver any order, large or small, to any place with full-service rollback trucks and trailers with a Moffett forklift to set building packages conveniently close to your project. And just so you know, they offer contractors discounts as well. Visit KaufmanMetals.com or call 814-623-6044 or stop in at 6146 Lincoln Highway, Bedford, PA.
Here's the deal. I've had constipation with belly pain, discomfort, and bloating for years. I've tried a lot of laxatives and fiber supplements, but my symptoms keep coming back.
You could have a chronic condition called irritable bowel syndrome with constipation, or IBS-C. Linzess, or linaclotide, is a prescription medicine that treats IBS-C in adults. Linzess works differently than laxatives. It lets you have more frequent and complete bowel movements and helps relieve overall abdominal symptoms, belly pain, discomfort, and bloating. These symptoms were studied in combination, not individually. Do not give Linzess to children less than 2 years old. It may harm them. Do not take Linzess if you have a bowel blockage. Get immediate help if you develop unusual or severe stomach pain, especially with bloody or black stools. The most common side effect is diarrhea, sometimes severe. If it's severe, stop taking Linzess and call your doctor right away. Other side effects include gas, stomach area pain, and swelling. There could be more to your story with IBS-C. Talk to a doctor today. Say yes to Linzess. Learn more at linzess.com or call 1-800-LINZESS. Sponsored by AbbVie and Ironwood Pharmaceuticals.
Is your congregation confident when it comes to sharing the faith? Most Christians would like to share their faith, but simply don't know how. Lutheran Lay Renewal of America offers a Sharing Your Faith workshop that examines the spiritual and psychological barriers to faith and offers effective ways to open the door to friendly spiritual conversations. Perfect for a Sunday morning Bible class, this one-hour workshop is offered at no cost to any Christian church. To schedule, call 724-287-5151 or visit LutheranRenewal.com.
Cy Gart's back with us. Cy's a regular on our show. He is a biochemist who has taught at NYU, the University of Pittsburgh, and Rutgers, the author of The Works of His Hands, A Scientist's Journey from Atheism to Faith. Hey, Cy, how you doing? Oh,
we think you're muted, Cy.
We think you're on mute there, Cy. We can't hear you. Let's try that. What do you think?
No, I'm not.
There we go.
There you go.
Now we're back. Hi, Cy. Nice to see you. The Ride Home streaming live on YouTube. You can see Cy's face here. We're talking to him via the wonders of Zoom. Cy, I was fascinated when John told me what you wanted to talk about today, the arrogance and the humility of science. And I love this topic, Cy. I love talking about arrogance and humility in every discipline because it's always a challenge, right? The more you know, knowledge puffs up. Right. And so all of a sudden people feel like whatever their discipline is, it's like the sum total of how we learn about the world.
Yeah. And it's a real problem within science. We see that in the news today. There are a lot of people who consider experts in science and experts in a lot of fields to be very arrogant. And I understand that because it's often the case when scientists are trying to explain something to people who don't necessarily know all the terminology, they sound very professorial and very sure of themselves and can be very arrogant. And I have known some scientists who really were very arrogant. But the interesting thing is that within science as a community, humility is highly praised, which is highly valued. And that might be surprising to some people because it's not what one usually experiences when you have interaction with scientists who are speaking on TV or giving a presentation of their findings. But all the people who I consider my mentors in science were very humble. And you kind of learn pretty quickly that you have to be humble because you make a lot of mistakes. And a lot of things that you do are wrong. That's just the nature of science. We could even see that in this pandemic. A lot of scientists got a lot of things wrong at the beginning. And the good ones said, well, we just don't know. This is brand new and we have to wait and get more data before we really know. And that doesn't sit very well, but it's a true expression of what usually happens in science when you're doing research.
Right.
You don't really know what you're going to find. And when you find it, often it surprises you and it tells you that you're on the wrong track and you have to go back and try something else. So humility is actually a natural thing in science. And I think this also reflects the situation in faith. And I'm glad you said that, Kathy, because the same problem can occur with people who are very knowledgeable on theology or on biblical studies, or perhaps some pastors who are very, very successful, who have very large congregations and audiences. There's also a temptation, as you said, to pontificate, if I could use that word, about what is true and what is not true, what is biblical, what isn't biblical. It kind of reminds me of when scientists say, well, that's science, that's not really science, and sound very sure of themselves. And I think it's interesting. It's an interesting parallel because, as we know, Christians are commanded to be humble. I mean, we are not supposed to put ourselves first in any way. We point to Jesus Christ as the source of truth, the source of knowledge, and we do the best we can. But occasionally we slip up, and by that I mean scientists, I mean Christians, and I also mean scientists of Christian faith, such as myself and many others. And it's something to guard against, because even when you think you're being very careful, the appearance of arrogance is easy to happen. And that's something that we should try to avoid. So,
Cy, do you ever see this where, especially in the scientific field, that people perhaps, early on in their careers, they start off arrogant, and then as they grow older, they're consumed with the evidence and the work before them, and there's a measure of humility that comes their way?
Absolutely. I think that's almost universal. I know it was true for me, and it was true for all my graduate students. When you're a graduate student in science, you're told you have to be in the particular area you're working on for your PhD thesis. You have to be the world leading authority. You have to know as much or more than anyone else in that field. And usually you do. It may be a very obscure field that nobody cares about, but it's important to you, and you do the research, and you know as much as anyone else does about it or more. And so that gives a feeling of, accomplishment, and also can lead to arrogance. As you begin to do actual research in the real world, and that could be academic or in industry or in the government, you learn that things aren't so easy, and that many times your ideas are wrong, and you have to backtrack, and you do get humility.
So then you
and I think you're right, and I think that's true in all fields as well.
So, Cy, you brought your story, your story about being an atheist, and you didn't come to Christ until a little later on into life. In some ways, was your own arrogance, grounded in scientific knowledge, was that a stepping stone to you finding Christ?
Yeah, that's a great question, John, and you mentioned a little bit about my tweet where I talked about one incident during my atheist time when I was very nasty to some Christians who were trying to spread the word of Christ. I was a strong atheist and a scientist at that time, and I treated them very badly, very arrogantly. That was, and I think I'm not alone on that either. I think that I often come across not just, I mentioned Christians who may show too much arrogance, but I also see it a lot in atheists on social media who, some of them like to inform me about, biochemistry and how that proves there's no God. And, what can I say? I mean, these are not people who studied it or have a degree in it. So I don't tell them, well, listen, I'm a PhD with 30 years of experience and 200 publications, and so don't you tell me.
Right.
It's tempting to do that, but I restrain myself because, A, it doesn't work. It's arrogant. And you don't catch fish with arrogance. It's better to use a more humble approach. So, but arrogance it's present everywhere. And I think what you said is right. It's often a function of age, experience, things of that sort. And it's very hard to remain arrogant as you get older and you get life experiences because, that's life.
It humbles us all, does it not?
Yeah.
It sure does, one way or the other.
Yes.
Listen, Si, I have to go back to the tweet you were talking about. And for our listeners who didn't see it, let me just say again, Si just told a long story in a very short amount of time, which, of course, is what Twitter's for, where, Si, you were sitting in a coffee shop? Were you sitting in a restaurant? Where did it happen?
It's a pizzeria, yeah.
Okay.
Pizza place.
Okay, and someone comes up to you with a tract, maybe?
Yes. Actually, the town that I was in at that time had a Christian college, and these two were students. And they were spreading, the gospel. They had some tracts, and they went into a public restaurant, which they're certainly allowed to do, and handed a sheet to me. And all I did was I looked at the top and it said something about Jesus Christ. And I immediately scoffed. And I said something like, I don't remember the exact words in the tweet. I said something like, well, my name is Satan and I eat Christians, something nasty like
something
that.
Flip, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Very flip and very put-offing. And I said a few other things, which I couldn't fit into the tweet. And they were quite upset, and young kids. And I was in my 30s. I mean, it was really unfortunate. I've regretted that and repented of that for quite some time. It's not the worst thing I've ever done in my life, but now that I'm trying to do exactly what they were doing, which is to spread the word of Jesus, I got some wonderful reactions to that tweet, by the way. Many people wrote saying, the Lord has answered their prayers. They were praying for you to see the light, and it took a long time, but eventually it happened, and so their prayers were answered, and I found that very uplifting.
Well, listen, I told this story. My husband has never been on Twitter, has no interest in being on Twitter, but I read that tweet and I told him the story, and the reason I told him is because knowing you, Si, I cannot imagine you doing that. I cannot imagine you doing that. And it's just the transformation that God brings into our lives. Sometimes it's important to step back and look and say, that really is an amazing thing that you could have done that and you could be who you are now.
Well, thank you. Amen. I mean, you wouldn't recognize me. You could see me, not just then, but even earlier. I was a different person.
But, Si, it's interesting that, you thought about that because obviously acting out the way you did, and you were a jerk, in your 30s to those kids, but it made an impression upon you that you thought about it all these years later, right? I mean, it wasn't something that, you just threw away. Obviously, what was said and done in the space of those few seconds there, still you carried with you all these years later.
That's right. Yeah. And I think that's also the grace of God. I mean, there are obviously, I lived quite a while and there are many things I've forgotten, but there are some things that I remember even from teenage years or earlier. And I think those are all due to the grace of God. I mean, the things that I remember are the things that are helping me now in my journey, and try to use them to do some good.
Well, I got to tell you, Si, that tweet absolutely inspired me. It really did. It inspired me to give praise to God for how he changes us.
And to think about humility, right?
Yep.
Arrogance and humility. I mean, you've lived it and you show it, and God's not done with you yet. He's used you, but he's got much more in store for you, Si.
Well, his will. Let his will be done. That's all I can say.
Si, it's been a pleasure to get to know you. So grateful that you join us on a monthly basis, and thanks for being here today.
Love to be here. Take care, guys.
Our pleasure. Si Gart, a biochemist. He's the author of The Works of His Hands, A Scientist's Journey from Atheism to Faith. You can find Si, as we said, on Twitter. Check him out.
I've been teaching my sweet 86-year-old grandma how to use her Alexa. The other day, I'm over hanging out and I see Grandma about 4 inches from Alexa yelling, "Hey, Alexa, I'm making cookies. Tell me when it's 10 minutes. It's Ryan from United Faith Mortgage, and the reality is the mortgage world has changed from old school to new school as well. In the old days, you usually use somebody local, but today, you don't have to be local to be local. You don't have to set up an appointment to see me. You'll have my cell and you can text or call me anytime. The Stone Age paperwork of old is now, usually just some easy clicks. And if you're refinancing, in most cases, we'll just send a notary to your home for your closing. The level of attention that we bring will make us feel very local for you.
We are United Faith Mortgage.
And one other advantage?
Read how our Direct Lender Advantage can often save your family monthly and lifelong money at UnitedFaithMortgage.com.
United Mortgage Corp, Melville, New York. MLS number 1330. Department of Banking. Mortgage Lender License number 22672.
Are you wondering if this year you'll still be asking why it seems so easy for other people to find love but so hard for me? If you're feeling the pain of being alone and are tired of everyone around you finding their soulmates and leaving you behind, then get ready to remove the barriers to finding the marriage of your dreams and start believing it's possible for you. Hi, I'm Jackie Dorman. Join me in my Married in 12 Months challenge, where I'll teach you why now is your time to find love, what are the lies that are holding you back, why God wants you to be married, the biblical law of attraction, and the tools you need to become a bride. Listen, if you deeply desire to be married but you're still single, you should be doing something about it. Sign up for my free Married in 12 Months 5-day challenge at lovestories.com. The only thing you have to lose is the pain of being alone on your journey. So join me at lovestories.com. That's lovestories.com.
Who doesn't love a good deal? What if you could confidently know that you're getting the best deal on a mattress on any given day, not just during one of those today-only sales? At the Original Mattress Factory, we have something better than a sale. A fair factory direct price on excellent quality products for everyone, every day. So you can take your time and buy when you're ready. When you're looking for the best mattress at a great value, come to the Original Mattress Factory first. OriginalMattress.com.
Your life, your hopes, and whatever you were searching for at 1:15 a.m. It's really none of our business, and it shouldn't be anyone else's. Protect your privacy online for free with DuckDuckGo. DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified.
101.5 WORD FM Pittsburgh. On your smart speaker by saying, play the word Pittsburgh. And on your phone via the Word FM mobile app, iHeart, TuneIn, and Odyssey.
I have been, as I do every 2 years, been consumed with Olympic fever.
Really?
I mean, John, I get up in the morning and I'm just all about it. So when it's time, I usually don't watch TV during the day, but when after dinner, turn the tube on, it's Olympics to that moment till you go to bed.
No kidding. You've been watching?
I mean, guess what my husband and I watched yesterday?
Curling.
Yes, exactly. Not just one, I don't know if it's called round, match or whatever. We watched like 3 of them. You guys. I mean, you know why? Because the Olympics only come around every couple of years. You got to invest. John, I assume you're investing?
I have zero interest. None. I could care less about the Olympics. The Chinese, just the whole thing, it just sickens me. So I choose not to read about it, think about it. Certainly, I refuse to watch it. I'm not interested in the Olympics one iota this year. None. I'll pass. Thank you.
Well, you sound sure of yourself.
I do. I'm just...
Now, let me just say, you know it's not the fault of the Finnish guy who, was competing in the cross-country thing yesterday, what the Chinese are doing.
How about the American citizens who have renounced their American citizenship and joined the Chinese team?
I'm not defending them.
I mean, why would I want to watch that?
She fell in her skating routine.
There's so many miserable, horrific things about this event. Why would I choose to be part of this?
But look at how many thousands of athletes have devoted their lives. Their athletic prowess is on display right now in crazy cool sports like luge.
They don't need me. They're not thinking about Johnny Hall. No way.
Yeah, but they want you to be thinking about them because they're young people who have gotten to this incredible level of expertise.
There's so many things about sports that I love. But really, the underbelly of many professional sports, which I will include the Olympics as a professional sport, is just heinous. The greed, the hypocrisy, the nationalism on display here. There's so much I just despise about the Olympics. That it used to be every 4 years. Now it's every 2 years. Let's take the money to the bank. And I love the athletes, and of course you want to see the beauty of that, but not this time. Not with the Chinese. I'm sorry, just not interested.
So, like the men's downhills,
nope. I have no interest. I'm not going to tune it in.
No figure skating.
And it's not as though this is kind of funny because this is
four-man bobsled.
This is the first time I've even brought this up. My wife and I, we haven't even talked about it. I'm assuming that she probably is on the same page with me. Although we're not joining in something together in the whole household. We just kind of go meh. And I really haven't verbalized this until you brought it up right now. The depth of my feelings about this. I'm just not interested.
Ski jump?
Nothing at all.
Not even like an alpine race of any sort?
Nope. And you know me, I love the sports pages. I'm not going to read about the personalities involved.
Wait, because you're taking a moral stand.
I don't even know if it's a moral stand. I'm just disgusted by the whole thing, so I just choose to ignore it. It's not even a stand.
What about speed skating?
Nothing. Forget it. Not this year. Fare you well, Olympics.
What? I watched some biathlon Saturday.
Fabulous.
They cross-country ski and then they shoot.
You do what is best for your life. And I will choose to do what's best for mine.
I want you also to invest in the biathlon.
I'm not going to go there. My guess is I'm not alone either. I have read a little brief something that the viewership is down.
Don't try to bring the public along to your side.
I'm not trying to. I'm just saying you make your own choices. This year with the Chinese and these crazy Olympics, I have zero interest. I'll catch the Summer Olympics at some point.
The little Swiss curler I watched yesterday it's not her fault.
Sorry, I live on my memories.
The Ride Home with John and Kathy, a production of Salem Media Group.
This is Ed Morrissey of HotAir.com for Town Hall. Nebraska Democratic Party